What we wanted to do in this session is just start a conversation because we think this is going to be one of the key conversations for 2015. And that is about this trend, if you've heard about it. And I should just ask, how many people have heard the term MarTech at this point by a show of hands? Big hands, like commit to it. All right, so probably like a third of the on-site room. What about the term Smarketing, the combination of sales and marketing? Has anybody heard that term? We got a big hand there in the back, a couple of people. So these two terms, MarTech and Smarketing, we're seeing more and more. And the reason we wanted to do a session with our panelists, we'll introduce in a second, is because one of the key factors of innovation entirely is really, at the end of the day, innovation. We're not in the world anymore of looking at Six Sigma, kind of how can we make manufacturing, a tiny bit better. We're not talking about manufacture of machines. We're talking now about people. And the biggest thing with people is that they're people. So to innovate, we have to have the right workforce. And one of the key factors that we have seen over and over is that we need to start focusing in on, do we have the right workforce? And in our work at HighRoad in the last year or so, the biggest thing that has cropped up over and over between organizations that are really successful, and this is what Sigma Theta Tau was going to talk about, and I'm so bummed that we can't do it because they had their full MarTech team. And we'll do a webinar, to make sure that we capture that. But the thing that makes them successful, and what we've seen a trend over and over in all of our all of the HighRoad clients, which are all great, is that they all have synergies between the departments. Somehow, some way, they've broken through and they've somehow rejigged the organizational structure. So whether they have a Megatron on staff, like our Adam Higgins, somebody who serves as kind of a liaison between marketing and technology and can be the translator between the different ways that they speak, or between sales and marketing, we're seeing that these hybrid roles are cropping up. And that for most associations, when we work with them, we come in to consult, what we're routinely finding is the ones who are successfully evolving and getting projects done are the ones who are equipped to have people that have crossover capabilities and have respect for other departments, but that they are these in-between people. They're like the Renaissance man of today's digital world.
And women.
And women, yes, and men, in a philosophical sense. And that one of the big things that we need to focus in on is really starting to ask serious questions about workforce. We talked about there's 4 generations out there in the workforce. Most associations, it's very critical that they have a staff. A lot of times it's a young staff, new to the career. That's a lot of associations are heavily populated on the workforce front there. We have to be asking ourselves, are we in a situation where people really want to come work for us? A couple weeks ago, I did a blog, and I ripped apart an association's job posting without naming names because they were advertising for an email marketer. And my question was, is that the right job title anymore? And like, who in the world wants that crappy ass job, right? So the way that was described was like, this sounds horrible. And certainly they want somebody like 0 to 2 years of experience. And I'm thinking, I'm not thinking of any 22 to 24-year-old who's going to think that was a great job. So the questions that we're asking are, we're seeing real trends about, okay, who, not only in the entry level, but also we kept hearing about the successful organizations are the ones with leadership. And we heard that, just to circle back, in the 2014 State of Digital Marketing and Associations, leadership was a critical component. And so we want to really cover these 2 topics today in this session, talking about MarTech and Smarketing, and how do we have the right leaders to lead us into the world where we have these hybrid departments. And they're wholly different. The organizational changes that are coming, maybe we're restructuring, and we probably haven't changed a lot of our job titles in maybe 10 years. Hopefully none of you still have a webmistress. I've always hated that term. But you probably have a webmaster still. And these things are really outdated. I mean, they're outdated job titles, and we need to look at that. So what we wanted to do today is sit down with the leaders of many of like the Smarketing and MarTech kind of world. And so I'm joined with David Martin, who is the VP of Content and Marketing at Electronic Retailing Association. MC Neville, who is the, what is your actual title? Director of Marketing.
Director of Marketing Communications.
And Communications.
So PR.
She's got it all. At Snow Sports Industries. And Chris Seaman, who has Sales and
Director of Membership
and sales. Yes.
Right.
So membership and sales, which right there is kind of interesting. And so we wanted to sit down with these guys because without a doubt, we have recognized them, and they're not alone. Tim Ringelspaw at Sigma Theta Tau International, his staff, he's one of these guys too. These are captains of innovation. You know, we're talking about this leader, the people who really are the leaders, who are really bringing innovation into their organization, and they're able to do great things. Rachel Bell is another one. Julie from MOA is another one. We have a lot of these clients. We've got Jen Sire from Virginia Society of CPA. She's another one. They're able to make the business case, have the clout and the seniority in the organization to be able to bring up the whole organization and bring digital into fruition. And it's the people that I'm surrounded with right now that are able to do that. So what we want to talk about with them, so I can be quiet, is how they got here and so what they're doing. Because this is the real life thing. If you're in a situation where either you want to aspire to become a Chris, an MC, a Dave, or you want to start saying, who do we hire to be able to populate our ranks so we're successful, you know, these are the questions that really should be on our minds, because it is critical that we have the right staff in order to do innovation and in order to really be successful and to get to all these things we talked about throughout the day. So I'm going to start with Chris, and I just want you to give me again your role and description. Like, what do you actually, you know, do, and what's your areas of responsibility?
Wow, a lot. When I say I'm the director of sales and membership as well, was mainly under sales for a long time. And when we first came to HighRoad to investigate even email, they were like, why is the director of sales coming to ask about an email system to start with? And kind of roles just like a lot of associations do, that we wear a lot of hats. And I was simply just interested in why some of our email marketing was getting through and why some of it was not. At the same time we were investigating all this, our database manager reports to me, who's been with us for a long time, and there's kind of a natural evolution of just being curious and trying to dispel some rumors and myths in our office of how all this stuff really works. So it kind of started there to get into the marketing, communications, email realm, and it's grown. But as far as responsibilities, the sales and membership part and the communication really overlap into most everything we do. So it's been an interesting combination of using it for sales, but also just for plain old communications and newsletters. And that's where I had MC come in and kind of join into the whole mixture to see how we can just make things better on the digital communication side.
So then MC, so that's interesting. So you were actually driving the whole thing to begin with, and then you came in to seek MC's help. And I'm going to keep remembering the word overlap that you said. So where are your areas of responsibility? So you started talking.
So the buffet of marketing, communications, website, social media, public relations. We have the association, and then we do a global trade show once a year, and we do some consumer initiatives. So pretty much kind of across the board.
The whole shebang, right. And Dave, what about you?
So I have marketing and content. So it includes all marketing activities, website, all creative, communications, PR, event registration, content development, interaction with our magazine, content planning.
What about the database?
Yeah, I also own the AMS, own all of our systems, essentially outside of accounting.
So one of the key takeaways that Tim would also say is that we keep finding is that the successful organization, you heard it today over and over about knowing your data, the successful organizations, either the database part of it, the data is either owned within the marketing structure, or it is a very close relationship between IT and marketing who kind of jointly own that. And that's something I think everybody can take home and ask, you know, who owns the database and who understands how to use the database and the query. So
Can I just add one thing? So when I first started, the CEO said to me, this is real quick, she said, the NetForum AMS will be underneath marketing. That's where I believe it should be. That's where our contacts are. That's where, you know, our customer base is and how we segment and all that. So for her, it was a logical place to make sure that database responsibility. So she was forward thinking. That's 6 years ago.
Yeah. So since we were talking, tell us about like who's in your team. Like what are the people? What are the roles, titles? You know, how did you get them, and how did you build this team?
I started. It was just me, and then I was able to bring in a marketing manager. I also have a DBA who's also now become our website guru. So he's been trained in CSS, HTML, but he's not. We all do the websites, our various websites. It's not just one person. And then I have a content manager who's responsible for all of our education and all of our content.
Okay, what about you guys? Who's on your team, MC? Who do you oversee?
So we have 4, and then agencies and consultants. So I inherited 2, and then 2 I hired. So we have I don't know what his title is now, but formerly a webmaster.
Okay.
So he works on all of our websites and HTMLs and that type of thing. The PR manager, marketing communications coordinator, and then her title used to be print production manager, more of a desktop publisher. And then we work with 2 marketing agencies, one we call kind of marketing agency, the other web, and then a PR consultant.
Okay.
So I oversee those.
And what about you?
I started with SIA about 18 years ago as a sales coordinator. There wasn't really even a sales department back then after it was kind of phased out for a while. So I built the sales role and a lot of the products that I had. Along the way, we hired 4 sales and marketing managers that work out in the field selling everything from memberships and sponsorship to trade show booths. Probably halfway through my tenure at SIA, the point when I think membership was, I'll say, handed to me or was now came under my area of responsibility, I pointed out to a former marketing head that we had before MC had that role that we were looking through an old marketing list that we had, and maybe if any of you remember the old XFL, not NFL, but XFL, we looked through a list, and first I said, well, why would we be mailing to them for one? And they went out of business 3 years ago. So something's wrong with our list. So I inherited the responsibility of cleaning up our database and our prospects, and that's where the membership role came on. So we have a membership manager, a coordinator, and also kind of a sales and marketing coordinator that MC and I are sharing right now, which is really leading us into the digital world of taking on some of these new responsibilities that we have with the build out of HubSpot.
And three sales reps.
Yeah, what about your sales team?
I did. I said 4
Oh,
sales.
you did that. Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
I'm sorry. 4 sales and marketing managers. I mentioned.
I was just so captivated. I missed it.
So one of the things that's come up over and over, we get the question all the time, so I'm going to just address it to you guys. Because again, you mentioned that you have some people that are in-house, you got some of the right people, but then you need external help. So one of the questions that we find that's coming up, so for just to be totally transparent, in the last year at HighRoad, our professional services are up triple digits. I think it's like 125% year over year. And that is because organizations are coming to us and they're asking us, hey, we need more than a tools company, we need consultants. And when we get asked all sorts of interesting things like, you know, do you work on, we got asked today, could you help work with our Joomla framework to do, I don't know, X, Y, and Z? And then somebody asked us, can you come in and talk to us about our LinkedIn advertising program? Tim flew me out to Indianapolis, we talked about this before, to do basically a therapy session, no lie, between the marketing department and the IT department to create a MarTech department. And really, because they realized the issue at the end of the day was not technology, it was the human aspect of how do we get teams to work together. And so we're asked all sorts of different things, but the question that I think comes up all the time is, as an association executive in today's world, when do you decide, how do you guys decide what I'm going to outsource and what I'm going to try to hire and bring in-house and say, I'm going to do all of this myself? And that's kind of the question on the table. So especially as you guys are converting over to, you both are, by the way, they're both adding inbound marketing to their digital programs. So, and it's probably more for you two, but like sales. So
leads, yeah.
How do you decide when you're going to outsource? Like, how did you decide you're going to which pieces do you say, I need an agency for that? I need to take that, and we're not going to have the capacity in-house to do this. Like, we need HighRoad to help us with inbound marketing.
So you're talking for like the agencies that we work
Yeah.
with? I mean, we've worked with agencies probably, I mean, on and off, I think in the association the whole time. And then about 10 years ago, we started really having a marketing agency and a web agency. And we did separate those. We did have the same have everything in one for a while, and now we just have it in two. And the marketing agency, they create our show campaign, so the designs for our show campaign, the designs for our association, and then we get all the files. And so the woman I mentioned, who's our desktop publisher or digital production manager now, she will kind of use those and transform them into different projects or programs or things, whatever we need. And then our web agency, they do all of the design for, we have 3 websites, actually 5 websites, 2 small ones. So they do all of that with our direction. We sit in, brainstorm meetings, strategy meetings, come up with, we show samples, things that we're looking for, and they do our mobile sites as well. And then we do have a PR consultant who we used to work with a PR agency years ago that went away, and so now we work directly with her. And she's out, since we're in snow sports, she's out in Jackson, Wyoming, so has a lot of contacts out in the industry, so we stick with her.
So are you saying for that, is it fair to say that you're setting the strategy, you have the idea, we have this initiative, but you're going to the agency to help drive that direction, kind of put a face to it, and then bring it back in-house to just execute on it? Right.
They don't execute anything, and we always execute everything in-house and write most of everything in-house. They help with the creative and some of the strategy, too. I mean, we have annual meetings where we bring all of the agencies and our PR consultant together for 2 days and talk about the state of the industry, state of the U.S. Association, guidance, what we've gotten from the board of directors, that kind of thing, we do it as kind of a launch meeting in the spring.
And what about you, Dave? When do you decide to outsource versus, say, we need to have the in-house, build the capacity to do this?
Yeah, we do a lot of it in-house. We do work with a creative agency, so the creative's done externally, and we have budget for that. But we've done that since I've been there. That was not done in the past. So new CEO, she brought me on and some other executives, and so it was sort of her vision was we're not going to pretend to do creative internally. And the level of our creative went up a lot. But so a lot of the other activities we're doing ourselves. We purchase templates for websites. I do CSS coding. I'll do HTML coding. I build websites myself because it's a small organization. I think it's a lot of fun. It keeps you fresh. You know what's going on. I'm a marketing technologist because my background's in telecom. I worked for for-profits in the U.S. and Europe for about 18 years before I came to the association space. So it's I bring a little bit different perspective on it, but a technical ability and interest to that's where that MarTech happens, right? It's where does technology and marketing come together? And so a lot of the people on my staff, we're working towards understanding how to code and not having to outsource that. Now, what's interesting about changing how we do marketing and looking and using inbound marketing, killing a bunch of print, as I talked about yesterday, and all of a sudden, like my marketing manager said to me yesterday, how are we going to spend all this money? I'm like, she said, where are we going to spend this money?
Wow, what a question.
And it was a good question. It was an open question. And I said, we're going to spend it on content. Mm-hmm. We're going to spend money and create content and probably work externally with an organization to help us create content for our events, for membership, whatever, because we don't have the capacity in-house. So part of it was freeing up the money and then saying, okay, now that we've got this money, assuming the budget doesn't change, how are we going to spend that effectively? Some of it will go towards LinkedIn advertising, Facebook advertising, more digital advertising, but then a chunk of it's going to go towards content development.
So I think that, and then just to add to that, the trend that I've seen our client base consistently doing is that it's like outsourcing is back in style. I kind of feel like everybody for 10 years tried to do everything in-house, and then they've then said, you know what, we need to leverage an agency to either help us build capacity for this new skill. Let's say they have no idea how to develop personas. So they're going to say, HighRoad, can you help us with the personas? But then they're smart to say, we can maintain this, and we have the skill set to be able to execute all the emails that need to get done. We're not going to source that to have somebody build every HTML. We've got that one down. But what we do need is to help, have a coach, I think is maybe like a digital marketing coach, come in and help us kind of ramp up to build out the leadership and the decision-making around digital. So I think you guys are saying the same thing. Because we see that's another one. We didn't ask in that survey, but it's a trend that we consistently see. And I think it's because we saw that lack of leadership. So
I've called you our tour guide.
A tour guide, yes. I've been called the tour guide.
Instead of coach.
The coach, that's right. I'm the tour guide of digital marketing. So, I mean, since we're talking about that, I think one of the interesting things that we, just to key up on that, we keep talking about the leadership and the buy-in, and everybody's fascinated about how did you get buy-in to move into a new platform, right? So everybody here they've added on, let's say HubSpot. How did they do that, right? So we want to talk about how did you get to your current role, and then how do you guys have the clout to make it happen? Everybody wants to know what's the secret formula. Like, how did you get them to sign off on that and say, yeah, we can do it? You guys want to start? It's exhausting.
Yes.
I'll say it took,
like pitch after pitch after pitch. I think
it took
for this
almost
thing.
5 years, I'll say, and we were evolving the pitch and the business case before we even knew it. Really, I think I failed to mention before. One of the guys that works on my team is our database manager. He's been with us for a long time, and we definitely wouldn't be here if it weren't for his just extreme diligence. And he takes so much pride in the database that we have and wanting to make things right. And it's funny, I almost say he would make a great police investigator, because he's literally at times interrogating people in a great way, in a very nice way, to make sure the database is as good as it can be. But at a certain point, it led to, we were all out of intelligence. And we had a meeting 5 years ago with David Caruso that started the list of best practices and things that we should be doing, and just opened up a whole new world of education for us. That led to us really upping our game and level of knowledge in everything that we did. And once we kind of hit another, I'll say, roadblock with some of the MarTech components, we reached out and started working with Suzanne. But it definitely, I think the relationship that we had and the proof that there was still a lot for us to learn made it much easier for us to present the case 6-9 months ago that there is something else that we should evolve towards.
And we did call Suzanne and we didn't even know you existed because you had just started.
I just started, yeah.
With HighRoads, but to try and figure out where do we go. You know, this is where we are. I mean, we contacted HighRoad 5 years ago. I mean, I don't know if I should say it publicly. We were getting blacklisted. I mean, we were just sending out so much stuff, and we were sending it out through, our own, I don't even know what Brian was using.
We all have email skeletons in the closet.
We call them to say, okay, we're blacklisted, we got to figure this out. And so we were never blacklisted again. So that was great. And then it kind of came around to the spring, and we called them again. And Chris and I just sat with Suzanne just to say, what do? You know, we need to do something. We need to move forward. This is where we are. You know, what are the options? And so it's kind of where we are now.
So, and then maybe I should ask this: who do you guys report to?
President.
Both are to
the president. You both report to the president. So you were able. So I think what people want to ask is, how did you prepare the business case together as a team? Did you do it based on revenue?
We stayed as a team.
Yeah, like
what's the
case? What's the pitch?
A lot of staff.
That's what people want to know. What's the pitch? Yeah.
I mean, we had to do it several times because we go to the CFO. He wants to know numbers, and then the president wants, forget about numbers, but he just wants to know what's it going to do differently for us. What are we going to get out of it? And so we would say, and then he would say, that's not good enough. So then we go back and we figure out some more, and then we go back again. And I can't remember what finally did it.
I think I took this safe approach, and I didn't base this on any additional incremental revenue. So I'm safe at least for the first year, but it was based more on just the marketing optimization and communication enhancements that we hope to get. Plus, we had been pitching for a long time, or I'll say maybe complaining or stating that we have a number of very manual processes in our office. Everything from our non-AMS database, it's home built. A lot of the processes that had not been changed in a long time that deal with paper and running lists in Excel and things like that. So it was time to kind of upgrade to a more standardized, recognized best practices, software or partner really. So it made it easy to, or easier to pitch this as a way to move it from the same old manual processes to something more automated and more professional and more polished.
We used our board too. I mean, we knew that from the board of directors and from a strategic planning committee, the perception and communications and technology were the top three, goals and objectives, to meet over the next 3, 5, and 10 years. And so we had that obviously in our back pocket.
And what were the three? Technology,
Perception, communications, and technology, which, inbound marketing and HubSpot and all of this new digital marketing achieves all of that. And so that's kind of how we started the case to begin with. And then obviously, the sales leads come in and revenue and increase memberships and that type of thing. So that's kind of how the outline that we started with was what our board and strategic plan were telling us they needed.
And then would you be able to share after this conference, like the actual almost slide deck that you used in the pitch? Is part of that you could use it?
We could use it now because we didn't use one.
You just did it verbally.
It really, I mean, Chris has been
it.
there 18 years, I've been there 16 years, our president has been there 35 years. I mean, it's a very family-friendly office, so it was easy to do that. It just had several times to do. And we had a couple slides for the board.
Okay.
I think
you didn't give up.
I said before, there was definitely a level of trust built from what we had done from the years before that. So it made the pitch much easier when we said it was kind of an evolution of working with HighRoad. So there wasn't a...
So you basically just wore them down. They just wore them down until they said yes.
Pretty much.
Kind of. And the staff was another.
Hold on that because I want to come back with that one. What about you, Dave? I know you work for Julie, and she's a visionary and she's a forward thinker. But did you have to get buy-in from the board as well, or from your CFO? How did that work?
No. Luckily, our CEO, to the extent that she can, keeps the board out of operational decision making, which they really shouldn't be in the first place. So I didn't do a single presentation. I probably got buy-in within 2 weeks at the most. A couple of conversations with the CFO and the CEO. There's a trust factor that we know what we're doing. What helped a lot was that our board was, when you market to marketers, there's a really high level of expectation. And people pick, there's a marketing roundtable just to tell me how to be a better marketer. And I have to do it twice a year with members, which is, you just suck it up and you do the meeting and you listen and you get some good ideas as well sometimes. But so our strategic plan that was initiated about a year ago was about helping our members to become as expert in digital as they are in direct response television. So this, when I present a platform that's forward thinking, that's cutting edge, and your strategic plan is expecting that and we're trying to help as an organization our members become more expert in digital. We have to walk the walk too. Right, so it made it easier they're like, okay, let's go. And the fact that it was a horizontal cost-wise was huge. If it had been twice as much, it would have been a different story. It would have been a longer process of convincing them.
And how have you been working with, so the next question is where MC was about to go. And I know you probably have like the perfect vomiting rainbows, like Jesse would say, about getting staff adoption. Because again, anytime you change technologies, anytime you're trying to do the word change anyway, trying to bring everybody along with you, not always the smoothest. So what did you encounter in doing this and being able to lead in today's world where you need to change?
I mean, success really is great. It just gets barriers out of the way. Our blog has been extremely successful.
So you're saying make small moves that are wins to build up the trust factor.
Small wins, okay. Small wins, especially with the sales team. With HubSpot, for example, there's a program called Signals that connects to all of your websites, and it's through Outlook, and you get a little pop-up that says somebody's on your site, someone's doing this, someone's doing that. Salespeople see that, and they're like, oh, I didn't know that person's on that's one of their hot leads that they're maybe even working, or a targeted company. And then they see, literally within 3 minutes of installing this on a salesperson's computer, it popped up. She goes, oh, I didn't know Babak was going onto the site. I better give him a call. And she called him, and the guy said, gee, thanks for calling, because in 2 hours, I'm going into a meeting, we're doing planning for trade shows for the entire next year. And this is going to help me, because she was able to give him pricing. Right? So that's just like crazy lucky, right? But it was like a small win that you converted somebody right away. And the growth of the blog, so that our CEO can go to the board and say, we're walking the walk, look what we're doing here. We got 30 contributors, we're doing 10 blog posts a week, we've got huge growth right now. she looks better. So it's always good to make your boss look good.
Absolutely.
Right? So,
yeah, I mean, a common trend we keep seeing over and over is, again, a small, like Dave said, a small win, a small carve-out project that gains that, how did we say it before? In the trust bank, it puts some credit in the trust bank, and it allows you to have that leverage where, again, you're presenting it to the executive and they're saying it's a no-brainer, and just to keep giving you more leeway to go. Now, turning on this side, let's talk about staff adoption, because you do have an interesting situation, which is not atypical. You have a lot of people that are on staff that have a lot of long-time seniority. There's a lot of, that. So how do you, this is a big change for you guys. I mean, it's a big change.
You start.
Absolutely a big change. I think the key in looking back, and we're certainly, I won't say that we're done by any means, but we've made some strides, but I think probably the best move in looking back was we involved as many staff as this initially was going to impact as possible back to the very, other than the couple pitch meetings that we had, it almost looks like a board meeting now. Suzanne walks in, it's like, well, there's 7, 8 people around the table. But so a couple times I've been able to remind people when they've challenged, trying to understand, why are we doing this and why are you making my job harder? And I wasn't made aware that there were these changes were going to be here. I quickly reminded them that they've been involved since the very beginning in understanding and giving the rationale for making this change. So we're still proving the case that, as was mentioned earlier today, that there's maybe a little more work up front, and I think we're hopefully starting to prove, at least soon, if not through this next end of our fiscal year here, that there are some definite benefits on the other end, even though we've had to put in more work up front. So buy-in and include it in the meeting, whether you like it or not sometimes. You're going to sit here and understand what it's about, and that's helped.
Well, do you have comments on that, MC? On adoption and where you guys
pretty
are?
much the same. It has been
Like advice you'd give everybody else on?
it's just being transparent on everything and upfront from the very, not that people aren't upfront, but like Chris said, including everyone, because it does affect their jobs, and it is making, and the first several meetings were pretty difficult because everyone's thinking, why are you doing this? Everything's working fine. Why are we doing, why so much more work? And I mean, a couple of times there have been some heated meetings, and especially when it comes down to data. But several times, similar to what Dave said, we've kind of put in front of you, this is for us to look better to the board, for us to look better to the members, and for David to look better. When the board, the board chair comes to him and is saying, well, what's going on with this, and this, we look current now, and with what we're doing. And so I think, it took some time, but it does seem, I haven't heard someone cussing about HubSpot recently. It was probably like a month ago. I did hear someone be like, why are we doing this again?
Yeah.
And but people are coming around, and I think there's kind of started, and even our web guy who puts together all the HTMLs and is completely overloaded. And now we have this kind of sales marketing coordinator that's going to be able to help with that with HubSpot, because they're like plug and play HTMLs that you can do, and you can still keep them highly designed with your branding. So I think that when he started seeing it was really a big step forward.
So one of the, and I just want to leave it with one of the trends. So one of my favorite, I heard this maybe 2 conferences ago, and it said, without conflict, there is no resolution, right? So if you constantly avoid talking about putting these things on the table, then you definitely just keep the wheels turning, and you'll stay exactly where you are. And if your goal is to be in stasis, which is neither growth, it's neither growth, how about that way? Stasis is still like a slow dying process. So if your goal is to always be comfortable, you're not going anywhere. You're just absolutely maintaining. So in order to move forward or grow, you are going to have to encounter conflict. And I think what we're seeing is that, and what I've seen in our clients in this kind of genre of the leaders like you guys and your peer group, is that we have leaders out there who are courageous. And there's a certain amount of courage that you have to say that, you've said, you've been very candid, like, I'm putting myself out there in order to lead this change. Like, I believe in this much. And that you're able to do that. You've come up to the point where you have enough, like, again, seniority, you have enough trust in the trust bank, credit in the trust bank, and you're able to pull that forward, but that you have not given up, right? And that you have not just said, oh, well, I have, it is what it is. Nothing can be done in this situation. And one of the pieces with that that I don't think we have enough training on as an association industry is change management. And I think one of the things we all need to look at in 2015 is, are we good with conflict resolution? Do we understand how we're going to handle conflict resolution in a 4-generation workforce, what that looks like across the board, how we're going to handle adoption and user adoption of new technologies or just new methods, new ways of working, and then how are we going to be able to really do kind of getting to the next level and really believing in it. Because I think what we're seeing over and over is that the standards are changing. Like what's normal 5 years ago is not normal today, and we're right in that process. And we need these leaders to be able to take us to that point. And so we're going to try our best to, again, raise you guys up so everybody can learn from you. And you guys have all agreed to be able to reach out to any of your peers or anybody else to help with saying, how did you guys do this? Because nothing works in associations more than saying, this association did it and it was successful, right? That's the biggest thing that works in this group.
It's absolutely possible. It's just the journey is not always fun, but we've had a number of conversations, I think, that have issues and concerns that have been buried for so many years of just, we'll get around it, we'll make it work, don't worry about it, and it's forced a number of departments. You've mentioned the age range and all of the people, wide range of ages and experience levels that had to come together to really have frank conversations and kind of a re-establishment of expectations of what it's going to take. And I've used the example of the square peg in the round hole a number of times, that we may have to whittle down here and change how we're doing some things to actually make it work.
And maybe I should ask the other side of that is, why are you guys so sure you needed to do this change? Or like, if you didn't do it and you just said, no, let's just maintain it, and you just put it off another year. Yeah. What was like the pressing thing that said, like, not another day, not another minute, we've got to do this?
I think because we've been putting it off for 5 years.
Right.
I mean, we when we first came to HighRoad and we went with a Blue Hornet, and we were using that, and we were going to try and be integrated or try and integrate our data, and it just never happened. And so we kind of got to the point, and then we went back and just said, okay, we need more. What do we do? And so I think Chris and I, the other thing that helped is we worked as a team. I mean, Dave is on an island by himself, but has a president that was very supportive. But in working with us, the sales and marketing, this marketing coming together was really helpful, and we both supported one another, no matter how difficult or heated things got.
And I think that's an important part. I think Tim Ringelspaw would have said the same thing at Sigma. It's very important. You're seeing a new kind of either a pair, a duo, dynamic duo, or like a triumvirate of multiple department heads saying, we're doing this thing together. I think that's an important point.
Yeah, I would add too that like marketing is changing so rapidly with all the different software platforms that are available to us, that if you're not educating yourself on a daily basis, you're just going to get left behind. I like listen to at least 6 or 7 marketing specific podcasts. I have a commute that's podcast friendly. I'm Metro. It's about 30 minutes door to door. It's perfect for a podcast, and it's both directions every day. So I'm sort of working like an extra hour in that regard, but I'm always listening to new stuff, new ideas. And when you start to hear it enough times, you're like, I gotta check that out. Then you go download an ebook, you read the ebook. It's getting blogs. I'm constantly on blogs. I get news feeds from blogs, all marketing types. Some of the podcasts that I listen to that I highly recommend are 6 Pixels of Separation with Mitch Joel. I don't know if any of you guys listen to 6 Pixels, but that's a really high-end marketing podcast. The Sales Lion does a podcast called Smart Marketing. There's also the Hubcast that's all HubSpot related. That's really effective and useful. Marketing Over Coffee is another marketing podcast. But someone referred to Scott Brinker, the Chief MarTech.com. That blog is really interesting because he talks all about the intersection of marketing and technology. And it's a little bit techy, but if you're not educating yourself on a daily basis, you're not going to get the ideas or the epiphanies, and the light bulb goes off, and you're like, I was listening to this thing, or I read this, and that sort of makes sense. Now I see it in action. I'm there, right? And that's sort of what I was like with a inbound platform. The marketing automation element is what got me there, but then the inbound methodology is what convinced me, right? But if I wasn't constantly, my kid goes skating, or one of my kids, I take skating every weekend for 2 hours, and I read stuff when I'm there, and it's the weekend, but it's also a nice opportunity. I don't get quiet very often, with 3 kids. So, but I think it's critical for marketers to be smart and to be technically savvy, because you'll get left behind. You can't just leave it to the IT guys, because you got a bridge, right?
Yeah, and just on that point, and then I have one more question, but just from a career growth standpoint, we heard a statistic that was in the market today, only 20% of marketers have the correct kind of digital skills and knowledge needed to be able to really do their job, and then 80% don't. So if you're out in a competitive job situation, or you want to get to the next level and go to the next position, guess who's going to get the job? So that's a lot. So that 20%, they're doing very well, because we're in the age of marketing now, and so just something to keep in mind. So if you're looking at career ambitions, et cetera, investing in this time is definitely something that is a smart move. So I'm just going to leave it with this question, because this is the last one that we get all the time. And it's kind of a myth that we need to debunk, or it has to do with innovation, and just the fact that we think a lot of times we see associations are always asking the question, when does it stop? Like, when do we stop with it? When do we get to the point where, the email platform, we did it and it's turnkey and we don't look at it again? Or the website, we don't have to update it. They're always looking, there's still this kind of thing in there where there's an idea that technology is going to somehow stop and we get a rest from it and we can hit pause. And so really the question is, this idea that technology is constantly changing. Do you find it rejuvenating or refreshing or exhausting? And how do you cope with it? And that's really it, because because I think a lot of us have fatigue. I think does anybody else feel tired with technology and overwhelmed? Dave always asks, is anybody overwhelmed all the time? Or are you just in denial, like this much is happening out there? So the question is really, how do you find this constant demand of technology? Is it empowering to you and you love it? Or do you find it just...
I think that there's a wide range of emotions. And to start, I think I almost felt shamed as to what we were doing. I told Justine this morning... No, you're right, it wasn't that bad. But I told Justine this morning that I was inspired by reading her tweets for the past couple of years, and even just tuning into some HighRoad webinars with Ron McGrath and being inspired by what could be or what we could do kind of kept me going. But yeah, there are certainly days driving home or reading emails while I'm walking the dog after work or something that are both inspiring and extremely frustrating, because from one minute to another, I'm reading an email about why are there some challenges to what we're trying to do, but then seeing something else that kind of pulls you into the next day and just kind of keep going. I've been saying for a while, we just need to keep going on this journey. And
I would add, I mean, it's just, there's no way that the innovation's going to stop. It's only speeding up, and we've seen that in the last, I mean, if you look at the Chief MarTech, they do an annual, it's like an infographic of all the marketing software, and it started out with just one sort of image with all these logos on it. And then after a while, they had to break it up into different areas of marketing software and at different levels of the stack of technology. And it's gone from 200 companies to 5,000 in 5 years or something like that. So it's absolutely exploding. And I find it really exciting, but you have to be able to stop. I said that I'll read when I'm taking my kids ice skating, but typically I don't look at email after 6 or 6:30. I've made a conscious effort that I do not do that, and I'm not gonna. On the weekends, I don't look at email. I'll look at my iCloud account, but I'm not checking work, because as soon as you do, you're screwed and you're in the rat hole and you're doing it. So you got to be able to have that disengage, right? To be able to be really, sharp all week long.
That's a good point. What do you have any comments on that? You find technology overwhelming, exhilarating? How do you keep up with it? How do you deal with it?
All of the above. I think we don't have a choice, but not to try and keep up with it and cope. And I say jokingly but kind of serious, I would be totally fine if it all just went away and we just go back to
Pen and paper.
faxes and handwritten letters, or not even faxes, handwritten letters and face-to-face communication, because I mean that's a whole other thing that's missing nowadays. It's hard, and it's hard with an association, especially because, and we talked also about, what do you do when your members or board, are consumer focused, and I think that's really difficult for associations, and that puts the whole tech thing in there. But I mean, like Dave and Chris said, I mean, we do the best we can, and it is very exciting. All of the things. I mean, when we think about what 10 years ago, 12 years ago, or 5 years ago, what we were doing or weren't doing, and what we're doing now, and all of the opportunities that you have to communicate and to get your message out. I mean, all the different platforms. That's exciting. I mean, it's also overwhelming. So I mean, it's all of the above.
Yeah, I think it's relying a little bit too on. I have like a handpicked group under 10 of thought leaders that I listen to, read, whatever, and it's not like I'm subscribing to 50 blogs. It's really about 5 or 6 at the most, and go with them, and they're helping guide me, and you got to make your own decisions, right? But it's easy to get overwhelmed by all the content because there's so much content, right? But find the good ones and stick with them.
I think those are really key points, and I want to end on, and I never thought about that because I do the same thing. I disconnect completely on Saturdays. A couple of years ago, I said I have to have a rule, otherwise you could work yourself, you can't really be connected. I mean, I guess you can be connected all the time, but I made Saturday like a free zone, if you will. Like I had to have something. Mm-hmm. But I think it goes back to the innovation part that we've been hammering home today is exactly what Mark Milroy said. We have to learn how to learn, and we have to be in this constant state of learning. And learning is not comfortable. Learning is frustrating. It's exhilarating. It's being humble. It's being able to say, here's where we are. It's being able to say, oh, sent that email, like I think Justine said, like, oh, that email sucked. And just being upfront and real about it. And I think that's something that we're hoping also to bring across. That association marketers, I like to say I'm a realistic marketer, which is like I get some stuff right, but it's like I'm just hoping for a better winning record at the end of the day than losses. I mean, there's a lot of mistakes that get made, and but I think we've had a fear historically about being upfront about that, and just being real about it. Like there's unbelievable pressure, like we have to, like never make a mistake. And Justine told us a lot of stuff about how people now are just like upfront about it, like, hey, we made a mistake. This is the thing. And I think we're coming into an era that is more innovation friendly. It's more realistic because people realize, the consumers realize, you can't get it right all the time, right? There's too much going on. And I think the level, and that's something I think a key thing to take home too, is that it's okay. The fear of like if I hit the send button and somebody's going to freak out and like unsubscribe, and that still it does exist, but there's also a whole nother generation that's a lot more like, like that's okay. And I think that's an important part because we need that culture of not trying to take each other down and being supportive. And we need each other in this community to come together so we can have peers to say other organizations are trying new things or else we're all going to just stop. And we would say, we think associations might be in jeopardy if we don't innovate. And so that's really our call to innovation, that really to wrap up for the whole day is that consider, thank you for joining us, but this is your new community and new peer group of a safe place where we can call each other up and say, yeah, didn't get that right, like whoops, or like this is really exciting, and being able to embrace all those emotions and being authentic, realistic marketers. So I think with that, thank you guys very much for this, and everybody, thank you so much for joining us. If you're staying here on site in Washington, D.C., everybody's invited to BLT Steak for a reception. And for our virtual attendees, and I hope you enjoy your digital frames and whatnot. As always, the biggest thing we need to know at the U is what next? What should we do next with all this content, and how do we keep the conversation going? And we're here for you. That's what we're here to do, and we're here to bring this and facilitate the connections and put these people together so we know who to go to when we have questions like this, because we all need peers, we all need mentors, right? And we all need to do it together. So with that, on behalf of HighRoad, thank you so much. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your day.